And then 2021, that's when I knew it was, I could see it starting to happen. And the withdrawals weren't terrible, but then I would get rid of them quick. I knew what to do. I'm definitely well-versed in drug addiction before that. So I kept going. And then I hit the point where I literally had to dose every 2 hours, all day.
Hi, welcome to the Sober Spill. Today we have Frank M., otherwise known to most of the world as Earl Slick. Frank is an incredible guitar player, teacher, performer, recording artist, author, all the things. And we're so grateful to have you on today, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Today on the Sober Spill, we have my dear friend Frank, who I've known for about 2 years, who's known to the world as Earl Slick, has an incredible creative history, has played with some of the best, David Bowie, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, your own solo career. And I know you in a different realm. You and I met as we're both really passionate about Kratom education. And I've learned so much from you. So thank you so much for being willing to come and speak and share today.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. So I think, Frank, you came into my life about 2 years ago when I was starting to get really into looking at how I was seeing so many people use Kratom and seeing it everywhere and not seeing enough resources and support and just a place to talk about it. And I was curious if you'd be open to sharing just some of your experience with what led you to your passion about education for Kratom.
Oh, absolutely. I found Kratom. First of all, let's backtrack here. I got sober in 1988. From a 20-year alcohol, cocaine, whatever thing that got out of hand. And I didn't use at all anything until they got the Kratom, which I was blindsided by it. I was actually on the road with a band touring, and I noticed my hands were starting to, I've been playing guitar for a really long time. And sooner or later, your hands are going to, just like a person that types, you're going to get like carpal tunnel and arthritis. So I happened upon one of those head shop places with one of the guys in the band he's a chronic pot smoker. He went to get papers. So I'll take a walk with you. So while I was there, I said, maybe I'll get some CBD for my wrists. And the guy, I mentioned, I said, I need some CBD. My wrists are arthritic and whatever. And he suggests, I got this stuff here. And he brings out this package, and it was Kratom. I never heard of it before. I had no idea what it was. And I tried it. And, it took a few goes because I couldn't figure out what the stuff was doing at first because they didn't know how to dose it. Because first of all, they tell you it's not for human consumption on a lot of the packages.
On the packages, I know. It says it's not for human consumption.
Taking, right? So after experimenting, I figured it out, and it worked like a charm.
On the arthritis,
it worked it worked instantly. It wasn't like, you didn't have to build it up like some other medications, and it worked right away. And one thing I noticed, after, I don't even remember how long, maybe a couple of weeks, it was actually working on my ADD and my moods, which when I'm touring though, that doesn't happen much because I'm busy, I'm working, I'm happy. And I could take it or leave it. Like I ran out, nothing happened. And then I forgot about it. And then a little while later, I did it again. And then about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, I noticed when I ran out, I'm going, this feels like some kind of withdrawal to me. And I'm going, so that's when I finally went online and I started doing a lot of research. And that's when I saw what it was. And there was enough information by that time that it said, look, if you do this every day and you do it long enough, you're going to get hooked and you're going to have a habit and you're going to be in for it. And
can I ask, did that scare you? Like coming from a history of knowing, where you'd been and before you got sober, did it scare you when you realized that it could be habit forming?
Not the first time, because I'm thinking to myself, you can buy this all online. You can buy it everywhere. And I'm thinking naively, and for somebody like me, I'm not exactly sheltered. So I'm going, wait a minute. Okay, this stuff, I mean, guys, I can buy it anywhere. No, not at first, but the next time around, when I started realizing what was going on, then I got alarmed. Yeah.
Yeah. So can we rewind back to when you first got sober? How did you do that? And how was it different this time?
Okay. When I got sober the first time, you're talking about me drinking a bottle a day of whiskey or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I like tequila. So I could drink a fifth of tequila a day and whatever beers with it. And by the end of my I was using about 2 to 3 grams of cocaine a day, 7 days a week.
Wow.
And then, the occasional Quaalude or whatever. I mean, I was out of control. And I crashed and burned. And I had a couple of people that were trying to get me to go to a AA meeting. And I was absolutely resistant. Oh, leave me alone. I got this down. The usual addict bullshit. But so I finally hit the bottom, and that was, I was up in Northern California. I was separated from my wife at the time, right? No surprise. So I went to visit my kids up there, and then I drove to LA, and all the way down, I'm going, you're not drinking, you're not drinking, you're not drinking. I was drunk about an hour after I got there. And then I had some blow an hour later. And I woke up on his coke dealer's floor in the morning, and he had brought a magazine with him that had all these pictures of some gig I had done a month earlier. And I looked at the pictures and I went, oh my God, I looked really bad.
You look bad in the pictures, or just seeing yourself that you could see it. You could see it in that low. You're like that. Yeah.
If anybody else, but I saw it and I'm going, oh my God, it was a shocker. So then I called one of the guys that had been really hounding me to go in. So I went to a meeting, and that was it. Should have been in a detox. Even at the time, I didn't realize how dangerous it was to quit alcohol cold like that.
Yeah. They weren't worried about DTs or alcohol withdrawal or
No. I mean, I knew about the withdrawal because every time I had a hangover, that's what was going on.
Terrible. Yeah.
That's what a hangover is, basically. And I met a person at one of the meetings that was a tech at a rehab detox place. And he lived 3 blocks from the meeting. And he was really a good guy. He said, look, if you want, you can crash in my house for a week. I only work part-time so I can keep an eye on you so nothing bad happens. So I did that. And within 2 weeks, I was fine. And that was that. I was done.
How did you go from using so much, separated, performing all the time, to then continuing your career not using, sober? Wasn't that very vulnerable, to get up on stage then and perform not using it all?
Yes and no. First of all, by the time I got sober, I wasn't working as much. What a surprise, right? That's what happens. But when I started to work again, it took a little while to get used to it because everything felt alien. Even driving, I never got stopped when I was driving when I was loaded. But when I got sober, I was getting stopped all the time driving. Driving sober was weird. Playing my guitar sober was weird. It just took about 6 months and I was right back on track, and it was easy. But I was 36 years old, and that's at that point your body does bounce back pretty fast.
But it's also an interesting place too, because your body is not bouncing back as quick as it was in its 20s. You feel everything more. I mean, I think that's a great time to get sober, and go into your 40s that way, right? It's you're not getting it. None of us are getting any younger, but it's such a beautiful way, I think, to preserve what we have and to keep on growing, because you're also not dead yet at 36, but it's wonderful time to invest in yourself. So you kept going, you kept playing. What happened to your marriage then when you got sober?
I was done.
It was done.
Damage was gone. Yeah.
How was that then? You mentioned your ADD. How was it then for depression? So you get sober, your marriage is done, you're getting your life back. What was that time like?
It was, I was going to 2 or 3 meetings a day, 7 days a week, right? So I had that to keep me level, and for the first 6 months or so, I wasn't working to my usual level, but I was working. So I was all right. It wasn't until about 2 or 3 years later that the ADD started to get out of control again. and the anxiety and all that. And, so here's the kicker too. So I'm going, okay, this isn't good. And I don't want to go back to what I was doing before to deal with this. So I went to shrink doctors and all that. I got misdiagnosed by a few of them. One of them I was diagnosed as bipolar, which I'm not. And at the time I didn't think about it, I said, okay. And they gave me lithium. I was on lithium for like a year or two, which really sucked.
Yeah.
So I got a new doctor and he took me off the lithium immediately. And, we just started dealing with the ADD and the anxiety in different ways down the line, But the one thing that never happened, I never came close to jumping in the car and going out and buying booze or doing anything like that. The other thing I did when I got sober, which was really important, I had to cut off a lot of friends. I had to cut off places I used to go. I mean, I had to, basically, when I went there was some things about that part of AA program that were really sensible. And one of the sayings is that the only thing you have to change is everything.
Yeah.
And they were pretty right. I pissed off a lot of friends. They thought I was too cool and all of a sudden, well, you can think what you want. I mean, I'm like, I can't kill myself. And the thing that really rang true when I first got the light went off, I got 2 kids. They're little. And I know what's going to happen to me. This is going to go seriously wrong. And I'm going to be a dead guy. And I can't do that to my kids. And then I acted right then. Had I let that go for a couple of days, I probably would have forgotten about it and kept going. So I took the initiative when the door opened and I went through. Because that door opened a few times before and I didn't go through.
You weren't willing at the time.
Yeah.
But it's incredible, that you didn't you're right, you change everything in your life, but you didn't change your career. You kept on doing what you're best at and what you're born to do. You kept on playing, kept on going. So it's amazing because I know there are a lot of people out there that get so scared that when they get sober, they're going to lose their cretivity. That they won't have the same spontaneity. Can you, would you be open to sharing about, what was that like? How'd you get it back?
I got it back slowly but surely. It took a little while, but I think hitting like the 4 to 6 month mark, all of a sudden the creativity started to come back. It all started to level out. And then, at one point when I started working again, pretty much everybody it was in my age group. Everybody was actually getting sober at that time. It was bizarre. There was this rash of a bunch of us ending up in meetings.
What do you think that was? What about that time was getting people sober that had partied so hard and it was such a part of the culture? Because it was like the 80s. What do you think it was that made that movement? I mean, like we see one now, like this health movement where a lot of people are drinking less and using less. But what do you think it was at that time?
You know what I think it was? Because most of the guys that I knew in the business were, let's say, 5 years older or 5 years younger than me in that thing. And so you're talking about guys from the early 30s to the early 40s. And with the amount of cocaine that was going on in the 80s and with the fact that it was so accepted and normal, I think that the cocaine actually pushed us all to get sober faster than we would have if we were only drinking. You add those two together and a few of us, it never occurred to any of us that somebody overdosed and died, one of our friends, that we should stop.
At the time. Yeah.
It didn't occur to me, oh, Jesus Christ, these guys are dropping. Maybe I should quit. Yeah. No, nothing will phase you until you're ready.
Until you're ready. Yeah. And that got you to a faster point already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So,
I was ready.
Yeah. What was that like for you when you realized this time around that you were addicted to Kratom? To realize like, here I am again. Because I think like a lot of us, you don't realize you are there until you're there. You're like, there's slow signs along the way. But like you just said, until you're ready.
It took about 2 years because at the beginning, I could go on and off of it. At the beginning, I could go 6 months every day using it and stop. Nothing happened. So I thought, this is great. It's legal. I could buy it. And it's, if you're just buying the powder, it's not terribly expensive. I mean, you'd have to be going through a ton of powder before it hurt the pocketbook. Unlike those extracts, which I hear guys drinking 5 or 6 bottles of that a day, and they're paying a lot for each bottle.
Yeah, it's very expensive habit.
Basically, it's starting to cost the same as a heroin habit after a while. But Yeah, it took a few goes, and I would be okay. Use for 6 months. I'd run out because I'd be overseas, and there's no such thing as finding it over there. It doesn't exist, in most of Europe. So then during the pandemic, when I was in England for the first 8 months of the pandemic, and I ran out the same week as they had a cutoff date of March 15th to fly back to the States. This is in 2020 for the pandemic. I decided to stay there. And I ran into Kratom that week. And I've been using it for 6 months straight, and nothing happened.
So you didn't go into withdrawals? You didn't have like the restless legs, sleep issues, like social anxiety?
Zero. Nothing.
Huh.
Zero.
Yeah.
I felt fine. I felt great, actually. And I came back, and then as soon as I got back, I had work in a studio up in Massachusetts, and my hands started to bother me again. And I said, "Oh Christ, the Kratom! I bet I could find it up here." So I picked it up, and I did use almost about a year straight. And about 6 or 8 months into that, that's when I started noticing it.
What did you notice? You think that bothered you?
Oh, I mean, I know what withdrawals are, and I'd run out and I'd go. It kind of took me by surprise. I didn't expect it.
It's very insidious, right? Because you're right. It's like a people consider a botanical. It's a powder. Were you making pills, or were you doing it in smoothies or drinks or teas?
Oh, I was just getting the powder and sticking it in a cup of coffee or something like that. Yeah. Because it likes to melt better when you put it in warm water. I mean, that's what I was doing with it, and it was a surprise. I mean, each drug, when you withdraw, has a little bit of a different kind of a withdrawal feeling, but withdrawal is withdrawal. And if you've withdrawn for anything else, you know what it is. And I pinpointed it, and I go, "Oh my God, this is what's going on." And I go, "Okay, I'm going to stop." I couldn't.
So you had stopped in Europe, and then you got back here, and you couldn't stop that time. The next time you tried.
No, I did 2 years in a row, on and off, for months and months at a time, without a problem. This time, when I ran out, it was bad.
Yeah, like bad. The withdrawal was bad.
Oh, bad.
Yeah. I know for a lot, like the social part, or the sort of the mental health part, like whether it's social anxiety, the anxiety is really bad with Kratom withdrawal for a lot of people, and then not being able to sleep, restless legs, and just like the physical discomfort. Like, did the arthritis come back sort of with vengeance, or what happened?
Did, but you know what? I was so sick from the Kratom. That was the least of what I was thinking about.
Okay.
Because the Kratom did make me really sick. When it came off of it, it was like my nervous system was shot. It was like when I got up in the morning, if I didn't even slept, I was shaky and nervous. It felt like I had like gallons of adrenaline going through me. I didn't get restless leg. I didn't get any headaches. I didn't get a lot of that stuff, but I did get. It felt like a combination of. I mean, it felt like a benzo or alcohol withdrawal, but it was different. It was different, but it was lousy. It wasn't fun. And I really thought that I could do it myself, because I don't think it ingrained in my head yet that it was as bad as it was. Because when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at booze, I'm looking at heroin, I'm looking at cocaine. And cocaine's easy anyway. I mean, cocaine's more mental than it is physical, but so then I had to start taking it seriously and go, okay, this is real. This is real. And yeah.
And so it had been a long time since you got sober, and I love the story of you going down and your buddy taking you in for half the week that he worked at detoxing, he's watching you. What was different this time about getting sober then?
Well, first of all, it was coming out of it. Actually, it was during the pandemic.
I know. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like the 80s versus during 2020 is like a really hard time for a lot of people. It was a very hard time.
So it was 2020 into 2021. And then 2021, that's when I knew it was, I could see it starting to happen. And the withdrawals weren't terrible, but then I would get rid of them quick. I knew what to do. I'm definitely well versed in drug addiction before that. So I kept going, and then I hit the point where I literally had to dose every 2 hours all day. And
it was a complete bondage. Yeah.
It just stopped working. All it was I was sick as a dog. I didn't want to leave the house. So I hit the internet because at that point, I didn't know anybody else that was using the stuff. So I went online and I looked at a bunch of detox places, and I went to one that didn't treat it right at all. They had no idea what they were doing.
Did they even know what it was?
They did.
Okay.
They did, but they didn't. In other words, they were just becoming aware of it. But none of the techs or anybody there really knew.
What was going on?
Yeah. They didn't know. And they didn't know what to do. So I guess they read up on it, and they treated it exactly like you would treat opiate or heroin addiction. Didn't work. They gave me Subutex when I was there, a Valium, and they didn't wean me before I left. And when I left, I was a complete mess. And I went back. So at one point, I said, okay, I got to figure this out. So I went back online again, and I must have hit about 20 rehab places. And then when I hit the Mountainside one, it had the most comprehensive information. Also, when I was reading, all the text on the Mountainside site, I kept thinking, all right, this is accurate. This is so accurate. And so I went into detox.
Yeah. How was it getting off it then?
Oh, with the professional detox, the medical one, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. Once I got in there, I felt lousy, but I've had, if it went back to the old days where I used to feel like coming off all the other stuff, it wasn't as bad, but it wasn't good. So they did a great job. And then, things have changed in my life, So there's all this other anxiety from life stuff.
Pandemic. Yeah.
And I went back on and off and on. So I ended up having to go to what? I went twice to the Mountainside, or 3 times, and finally last December, that was it.
Yeah.
Because what happened the last time was I was only using it for like 3 weeks. And I go, okay, do a short run here, right? At 3 weeks, I went to stop. Full on withdrawals, which didn't happen a year before.
So it was like getting very progressive. I mean,
very progressive.
Yeah, very progressive.
Very progressive.
Do you think that could be so many factors. It could be where your body is, age, metabolism. It could be where Kratom is getting more and more potent. Like you said, we've seen the elixirs. We're now seeing we're seeing the pressed pills. Like things are getting more distilled down to like the most psychoactive components now. So it could have been a lot of things.
But I wonder because I stuck with 1 or 2 brands consistently because I also knew this stuff is unregulated. And these particular brands, I trusted them for some reason, because who knows what was in there anyway. But anyway, it wasn't that. I wasn't hitting the extract stuff at all. I think what it is with any drug that you use, if your body, you have if you work out, you have muscle memory, right? So a guy that works out and he gets lazy for 6 months, when he goes back to the gym, it only takes him 2 or 3 weeks to get back. As opposed to when he first started, it took months to get like that, right? So yeah, and you body has memory for these drugs.
Your body definitely remembers, absolutely,
right away. And then you don't end up where you were the first time you used it. You end up where you were when you left off, or even further down the line. And between that, circumstances, my age, the other two, the older you get, the less your body can deal with this anything, whether it's kratom or booze or whatever it is. Yeah, it was a whole bunch of factors. So, I mean, I was as bad off after using it for 3 weeks as I was from using it a year. There was no difference.
Wow.
I was that sick.
Yeah. Well, and now where would you say you are with it? And what would you share with anyone about kratom?
I finally got to the point where it scared the crap out of me. So, and the other thing is I haven't had any sort of, I haven't woke up or even any time during the day craved it at all. Cravings weren't there. That's how I stayed sober the first time too, because I don't know how it happened, but I went to my first AA meeting and I never craved it again, ever. So fingers crossed with the kratom. But right now, because I do have friends of mine that know about this, and I've shared with, if I get squirrely, I'll just call them and talk about whatever,
Yeah, so I was going to ask next is like, how does community play a part in it? Because I think of you and your whole life, you interface so much, like, and you get so much energy from public. I think you and I both are very social people. And I see like, I see that in you, how, so I guess I don't want to speak for you. I'm curious, like, how does the social part, breaking the isolation affect your mental health and just who you are as a person?
Socially, I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was all right. I was just glad it was gone. I didn't, socially, once I got it out of my system, it was a lot better. But there would be, when I first, after I came out, there'd be about a period of about almost a month where social anxiety was there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to the supermarket, I would put it off until there was no food left in the house because I would get squirrely about going out. After a month, that went away.
Yeah.
And that's the danger zone right there, I think, for a lot of people. It was for me.
The isolation
once I got past that. And then the last time I went back to it, I don't even know what the damn trigger was. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
What
was it like to go back to go to detox at this point in your life when like you did almost like a home friend detox, like an ambulatory detox with the detox tech in the 80s, and then going into like a medical detox in the 2020s. What was that like?
It was weird because when I got sober in 88, you got 20 years of a serious drug and alcohol habit with no detox and no rehab. And I was all right.
Yeah.
Kratom wasn't the same thing, but I also have to look at the circumstances. I have to look at my age, changes in your biology changes all 100%. The time as you get older. So, that was an eye opener, but it's been more difficult for me to deal with this drug than the drugs I used to take. But I think that might be age, your body just doesn't want to handle it, but it's also the nature of this drug.
100%. I mean, we hear people say that every week, that this has been the hardest one for them to kick. I mean, so I think you're not alone in that at all. How would you say like the role of community has helped you stay sober long term? Like you talked at the meetings, and I love that you say like you still pick up the phone, you call people, you still show up and socialize in meetings and talk about this stuff. Like what part of your life does that fit into?
It fits into everything kind of because, we have the Kratom meeting on Tuesday night, right? Which is great. A matter of fact, when you started that, Jen, I think it was me. It was like 4 people.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Yeah. For many weeks, many months, it was this nice small group.
And then all of the time, more people started showing up. And then some of the people that are showing up are talking about they've been to other Kratom meetings. Those didn't exist before yours, as far as I know, because I never saw them. And as far as in the big picture goes, I have that. Now I have friends that know about this because I've told them about it. And I'm conscious of it all the time, and my situation too is another one that people got to realize. After the pandemic, a lot of things changed, and I live in a pretty remote area in upstate New York, and the isolation is, you know what? I just triggered a thought. When I went back to it the last time, it was the isolation. And right now I'm dealing with it again, but I'm taking strides to get out of here. I'm going to have to move someplace else more populated than this because I'm a people person. You are. I can't be sitting up here with me and my dog.
No matter how gorgeous it is. I mean, look at that background. It is just perfection. I know.
House. The house is surrounded by
woods
around brook, and it's great, but it's also turns into a prison after a while. And that was the whole thing about Mountainside. I know what they did medically to detox. I know exactly what they did. And I could actually put all of those medications together myself. But by myself in the house, in the woods, no. It was the people, it was the staff at Mountainside. It was interacting with the other people in the detox. That did the trick. That really helped a lot. It did.
Yeah. What did you notice? Like going in, I mean, a lot of people in the world don't have the experience of going inpatient or going to detox. And I think it really is a privilege when you get to see, yourself in others and see the suffering and see the humanity despite different ages, despite different races, despite different walks of life. I mean, there you are, together. What was it like for you, even just like sharing a room, or I don't know if you shared a room there, or, like hanging out on the smoke porch with maybe people that were, younger guys, and just, it's mixed genders, everyone there. What was it like for you?
I could backtrack a little bit, is that I went to the first place, the one that I went to before Mountainside.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible. When you were in there, it would liken to being arrested.
Oh, yeah.
Strip searched. I mean, it was degrading. It was shitty. The place was depressing. And I thought, this is what these places, because I've never been in one before.
Yeah.
I'm going like, this is what it's like. Screw this. But Mountainside was a lot different. And the staff was great. The facility was great. They knew about Kratom. They knew what they were doing, and it worked really well. The other place, I would think that they were like a century behind.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of like growing up in New York City, where my buddies would go to a detox place every once in a while. Basically, they would just stick you in a
like
bed.
A bed. Yeah.
And that was it. No counseling, no nothing, and that's kind of what that place was like. And it put me off for a while. And then when I got out of control again, I took a shot at Mountainside. And I didn't know what to expect when I went. I go, oh, I hope this is not like the other place. And it wasn't. And, from the time I got there, by the end of the day, I felt comfortable. I said, okay, I'm exactly in the right place right now. I'm good.
Yeah. Wow. It's incredible, though. It's a huge, I think, investment step, and it's a huge vulnerable step, too, because you don't know what it's going to be like.
No, you don't.
How, too, going back then to getting out, and your job is very physical. You're still playing, you're still teaching. You just taught at a major, incredible music, one of the best ones in the country, music college or university. So you're doing all this. How have you managed the pain and, being in recovery again?
The pain part, my doctors have been useless, right? I can go off on a tangent on the medical profession at another time, but for right now, we'll just stick with this. My shrink got the pain dealt with. It's the best we could do. It's a drug called Lyrica. It's in the gabapentin family, and actually, they tried that before on me for the anxiety. A different doctor, and that didn't go well. I didn't. I wasn't very compatible with the
like the regimen they had you on, or the way it was working then.
It was the gabapentin. It was a heavy drug for me. I didn't like it. And
it is definitely for some people a heavy drug.
I mean, I stopped after about 3 or 4 months, and I thought, okay, I'm not taking a major dose. And then when I stopped, I went into withdrawals. And I thought, are you kidding me? And that was my medical doctor that put me on that. And she said there'd be no problem with that. She was dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. So the Lyrica, according to my shrink doctor, is not as heavy duty as that. It's more transparent too. I don't feel the drug at all. I felt gabapentin. It made me a little edgy and kind of grouchy, and it would make me a little tired. I'm on a low dose of Lyrica, and it's working well. I add some CBD and I add some Tylenol to it because I don't want the dose of the Lyrica to go up from where it hit. I'm on a low dose. So it kicks the pain out about 60%. And the other 40%, I use Tylenol and stuff for it.
Okay.
Just playing it safe.
And how do you break and make sure and keep your isolation in check and get out there? I know you do for work a lot, but how else do you get yourself out there?
Right now, I just jump in the car, which I'll do when we're done today because it's a nice day. Walk the dog. And then I'll drive over to the town near me that I have a lot. I know all the shop people there and the people at the coffee houses. So I'll just go out for an hour or two, and it really is night and day.
Yep.
And some days when I wake up and I'm like in that isolation day, I'm like, dude,
You just got to get out. You got to get out.
Sometimes I literally just drive into the little town in my house, and I'm going to the grocery store if I don't need anything. I mean, if you're going to the grocery store, you'll find something. So I just go, just to get out of the house.
Yeah.
That's why I'm moving, because before a pandemic and all that, everything was different. There was a lot of us up here that would interact all the time. And when the pandemic was over, that's gone.
That sense of community.
We all scattered everywhere after the pandemic. So, this is not a healthy situation for me. That's why I'm making the move and going, okay, you got to get this house sorted out, pack it up, and move.
Yeah. And then what do you think, I don't know if you can share, like what's up for you next? Some big things. So you're moving, and then professionally again, you're still really out there. What do you want to do next?
The next month, I'm off from work. So I've got to get some help, because also when you're by yourself too much, you can't get anything done.
You get lost in your own head. Yeah, no, you're right.
You get lost. So if somebody's here, I can focus. Just having another body, they could literally be sitting in a chair drinking coffee. If they're in the house, all of a sudden I get focused. And that may sound weird, but that's what happens.
It is like that whole thing, together we can do what we could never do alone, which sounds like a total platitude, but it's so true. Whether it's like going to work out or staying sober or just like organizing the house, I can definitely relate to that.
I got to start really getting up my butt and get some help and get this house sorted out. I go back to the UK in June for a few weeks. I have some business over there that has to do with, besides playing and doing all of that other stuff and making records. About 12 years ago, a friend of mine owns a big company that makes musical instruments and parts.
Nice.
And I designed some guitars for him. So there's a line of guitars I am, and I got to go over to Scotland's having a guitar show. And because of certain things that are happening right now in the political scope here, my business is taking a beating. So we're going to try to get distributors overseas. So I'm going for that. And then I go back to London directly from there, and I'm working on this guy's record that I work with occasionally. And I may or may not stick around for another week, or I'll just come back. I mean, that's kind of where we're at now.
Business and visits. It sounds really good, though. Wow. What is it like for you going back into the guitar community where you're very well known and you go in? What is that like for you moving from anonymous spaces to public spaces? I
love it because, I haven't really worked in this country that much in the last 20 years. It's a different ballgame for me in England. And England's it's a different animal entirely. I mean, the music community here is still very close-knit, tight-knit. Here, it's just not like that anymore. So when I get there, I've been staying in the same place for 15 years when I go there.
Oh, so again, they know you. Yeah.
You know me. And all my friends are there. All the guys are there. So before I leave, I text everybody. I said, I'll be in. And usually I get off the plane, go in my room, take a shower, and meet my buddies for a coffee. And I feel completely back in my element and comfortable.
Yeah. Good. That sounds like it will be a good break for you.
Those guys are all sober.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yep. Every one of them. And some of the guys come out of notorious bands that you would never think were sober.
And they're all sober.
Yeah.
It's a good way to live. Well, I mean, they're still alive too. It's amazing.
Well, yeah. It's a good way to live because you're still alive is really the point, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite topics we've talked about that I'd love to just end on a little because I love, you are a native New Yorker. Were you born in Brooklyn, grew up in Brooklyn?
I was in Brooklyn until I was like 13, and my father bought a house on Staten Island. I hated it. But Staten Island is where I got the bug to play music, and so did everybody else. So that's where I learned how to do what I did on Staten Island. And as soon as I started to get good enough at it to be working all the time, I left. And I never moved back.
There's a lot of good people from Staten Island. Right. Good comedians. My great aunt Lily had a house in Staten Island. I used to visit. Let's go to the gardens, take the ferry. What about, can you share a little bit, my screen got a little dark, but about New York and the 80s and the music scene? Would you be willing to take us out with that? Because I love when you share about that.
The 70s was fun. It was really cool into the early 80s, because New York City was not anything remotely like it is now. It didn't look the same. It was dirty and grungy and amazing. And, that's where the art comes from. It comes from that. It doesn't come from walking around by Billionaires Row at, passing Tiffany's. We don't give a shit about that. We loved it the way it was. And there were a lot of clubs in Manhattan where all of the major bands would just hang out. So you could go in there and be rubbing shoulders with all kinds of guys in there and that were very well known. So it was, and then once you got to that level where you were with them, we had a great community. And in the 80s, it was good for a while. And then the cocaine was already there in the 70s, because I was using it for a very long time. But the 80s, the cocaine went to another level. And that's when things started to get bad, because that's when I started seeing guys in bands breaking up, guys in bands fighting, a lot of attitude shit, a lot of bad stuff was happening. And that's what the 80s that drove me into getting sober. But it was a wonderful community of stuff. And it was so funny that when I first started going to meetings, because I was isolated in my world of alcohol and drugs, then I went to the meeting, wait a minute. I mean, I knew a dozen guys in there.
Yeah.
So that was the new community. But New York back in the day was great. I loved it. It was a training ground, and also it was timing. It was all about timing. It was New York City, London, and LA where everything was happening. But I loved the scene in New York was great. It was a wonderful community of people.
How do you think that influenced your playing and your style and who you are? Like just being sort of brought up in that culture.
At first, I was, when I was in Staten Island, I mean, back in those days, their social interactions were in person, like real human bodies, not this.
In the same room. Yeah.
In the same room at the same time, right? And so our social reactions, they all came from there were clubs everywhere. There was always bands playing. And the nights I wasn't playing, I go to where my friends were playing. That's where we found our girlfriends. That's where our buddies hung out. That's where our whole social life was based around that thing. So by the time I got to the next level, I was ready because I'd already put in a lot of hours, so it really helped me a lot, that whole training ground that we had. And that's why now things are a lot different in the music and especially in the rock and roll end, because people they interact, through this social media and, putting stuff on YouTube. It's all fake.
Or it's highly curated. It's like you don't have that spontaneity of going out and playing, and like you're working with the crowd, they're working with you and your bandmates. I mean, it's very different. You're right. Everything is very pre-planned or able to be curated, able to be changed, manipulated.
Well, also what's different is we would put a band together and we would just go from club to club, talk to the owner, get an audition, and get a gig. And after you got that far, they would just call you. That doesn't exist anymore. Those clubs aren't there. And we actually got paid. I mean, when I was 17 years old, I was making as much money as my father, and I was just playing in nightclubs 4 or 5 days a week.
Wild.
Right?
That must have been wild for your parents. Yeah.
He hated it because he couldn't discourage me from doing it because I was making money. But now that's impossible. In the 1980s, I think it was the Whiskey A Go-Go decided that if you wanted to play there, you had to pay them X amount of money and bring in people. That was the beginning of the end, because then all the clubs started doing it. Wait a minute, look at that. We don't have to pay the band, and they're going to bring people in. Yeah. And that's what they have to do now. Well, they'll go on their Facebook and their Instagram, and they'll announce a gig, but they have to prompt people to come. And I know guys, some of these younger bands, they'll have 150,000 followers, and they do a gig and 6 people show up. Discouraging for those guys.
Yeah. And especially, because then creativity shifted too. Just by not having the people there. Yeah. Well, Frank, I am so grateful for our relationship. I'm really glad to have got to knowing you the past few years. I would love to talk to you more. For today, just want to take us out on any advice you would want to give anyone out there. It can be on Kratom, it could be on music, anything. Just any little piece of life tidbit that's helped you that you put out there.
God, I get asked the question a lot. And as far as the music goes, that's an easy one. I don't care whether you're playing guitar, drums, if you're a painter, a sculptor, the art has to come first, because everybody's so worried about their social media that they're spending more time, soliciting people, looking at likes, looking at how many hits they get on their thing, and everything else kind of goes in the background, which turns it into shit down the line, because their priority is they're reverse engineering. But I understand why, because people say, well, if you don't have this much of a social media presence, you're dead, And so I would just say art first. As far as the drug goes, I don't even know. because if you're talking, especially somebody that's younger, common sense is out the window. Shit, even at my age, when I went in for the Kratom the first time, my common sense went out the window. I should have investigated that. I didn't. You know why? I was in a good headspace at the time.
Mm-hmm. And it was helping, it was helping what it needed to help.
Exactly. Right?
Yep.
Now, if I were to give myself, my younger self advice, I wouldn't have listened to me. So I don't know. I mean, these days, too, there's a big difference. When I was drinking and using before I really messed myself up, I wasn't saying, oh, my God, I have anxiety, I need to drink. Or I have anxiety, I think I'll take a quit. It had nothing to do with that. I just like getting high. We all did. It was a part of
it was fun.
It was fun. It was lifestyle. Now what I hear from a lot of people is they're using substances and these nootropics that are popping up all over the place. And there's a few other ones that are not terribly safe either that float along. That's different. It's not about saying, hey, we're going to see a band tonight. Let's get some beers or whatever. It's a lot of it has to do with people getting anxiety. They're getting depressed. I mean, it's a whole nother world right now. I mean, the social media has caused a lot of people a lot of anxiety because it's keeping up with what this guy looks like. And this guy gets more hits. And then the girls look at what the other girls look like. And the guys
trying, it's like an unachievable goal to try to compare yourself to something that's airbrushed.
Yeah.
Like it's just...
When you do, if you're going to do this influencer thing, is insane because they're putting filters and they're rebuilding. They're doing plastic surgery on a computer, and they don't even look like that, And then you got the other kids that maybe they don't have the right body or the right face or the right clothes, and they're going. Then they feel less than. They're going, well, she looks good and he looks good, but I look lame, and And I don't get as many likes as they do. And that's just too much. Then for the poor musicians, they literally have to put that stuff together before anybody will pay a damn bit of attention to it. That's why the music takes a back seat. Social media is dangerous. It just is. I mean, I hate it. I like the internet because, first of all, I love history and I love to investigate. I could read things. Also, when I'm writing an email, I'm very I'm meticulous about how I speak, and so I'll get a brain drain once in a while, and I can't spell a word. Just go back in another site, open the dictionary up. There's my word. I love that stuff. I don't have to go to my bookshelf.
I know, get off a dictionary or thesaurus. I know.
I hit a button, right?
But aren't we lucky that we grew up knowing how to use a thesaurus and a dictionary, how to actually go look up a word to find the precise meaning? Well, Frank, we're going to put something together for the future, but thank you so much for your time today and showing up today. So we will get you before you get too busy with your move again. But thank you so much for coming on this morning.
We'll always find time to do them, because I want to take the internet thing and all that to another level the next time we talk, because I think it's a really important thing.
Huge topic. I would love to talk more about that. Yeah.
Example, and then I'll just shut up, is that I go on, I have bought some Kratom online a few times. I still get spam emails from all these Kratom companies, because once you buy it from one site, they have your information.
Gone. Yep.
It happens with, and open up Facebook, and Christ Almighty, feel free is hammering it again, and it's like I took that once. There was guys working.
Yeah, but they got you now on Facebook. It's crazy.
Yeah, they got me on there. And the day that I used it, there were some guys working at the house, and a friend of mine said, you got to try this stuff up. So I drank half a bottle of the guy when the workers were here. I felt like I just took about 6 Percocets or something. God. I was messed up.
Yeah.
And I'm going, you know what? This is, first of all, I'm too damn stoned or high, and it's not that pleasant. I could see that it can get pleasant, so that was it. I drank that one bottle of it. It scared the crap out of me, and I never did it again. But I did research it. So when I researched it, now they know. So they're advertising their brains out. So these people on social media, the young ones, are probably going, oh, look at that. I don't get in trouble. I'm not going to, I'm not going to be addicted or loaded, because that's the way they present the stuff, which to me in itself is a crime. It's misleading. It's very misleading.
It's very
So we'll
scary.
get into that next time. I think it's a really important one.
It's a huge topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Frank.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be in touch for the next one.
Frank, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoy talking with you. To follow Frank, please check out the links below, especially check out his Slick guitars. Google Slick guitars or go to Guitar Fetish. But Frank, I hope to see you for some more talks. And please, if you like this podcast and want to hear more, please subscribe and like below. Thanks.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, Mountainside can help. Call 860-365-6764 to speak with our caring treatment team.